Hi, I'm Aaron.
And I'm Brad.
Welcome to Strange Realms.
On this week's episode, we're going to take a look into cryptids. So, we're going to do an entire series on YouTube and a long form podcast style talking about cryptids in further detail. So, if you like that kind of stuff or UFOs, any kind of crazy
All the good stuff. We're going to talk about all the good stuff.
Yeah, make sure you
stay tuned.
Like and subscribe, turn on the notification bell. Hit us up on Twitter and Facebook. All those links are down in the description.
Any support is greatly appreciated.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And so you may be wondering what a cryptid is. Not a lot of people know the term. So
yeah, it's basically like loosely applied to encounters and sightings that people have of, creatures or beings that are, seem interdimensional, otherworldly, hard to explain, or, thought to be extinct in some cases. And a lot of these sightings and encounters have official reports that go along with them, though in most cases the officials won't or can't verify the validity of it. So it kind of adds to the infamous side of it, and that's what, a cryptid basically is.
Right. So some of the more popular cryptids you may have heard of would be Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, the Chupacabra,
Thunderbird.
We're going to talk about three today specifically. We're going to get into Mothman, the Jersey Devil, and something that's a little bit more local to us and probably not known by a lot of people would be the Pope Lake Monster.
Well, it's cooler name, the Kentucky Goat Man.
Yeah. So let's jump right into it.
Mothman is probably one of the top infamous cryptids out there. It's typically described as being humanoid in a general sense, that it's bipedal and has black colored skin and sometimes depicted with fuzzy blackish fur. It has two very noticeable red eyes. In one of the main and more popularized sightings, it was said that when headlights hit its eyes, that they glowed red, but it was only reflecting off of its large dragonfly-type eyes. And arguably its most noticeable feature was its giant moth-like wings that it reportedly used to fly with. Although its descriptions vary, they are generally similar to those features I've just described. There have been worldwide sightings of Mothman apparently from West Virginia and Chicago, and even New York City during the 9/11 incident in the USA, to London in the UK, and even to Southeast Asia and Japan. Here are a few of the most well-known and interesting encounters and sightings of Mothman. The first story is arguably one of the most known and chilling encounters ever, and that is the one that happened in Point Pleasant, West Virginia with the Silver Bridge disaster. The Silver Bridge, which was built in 1928 and collapsed at 5:05 p.m. on December 15, 1967, it was exactly 13 months after the initial Mothman sightings. The bridge was full of cars who were mostly shoppers. The bridge was already 39 years old and was allegedly poorly maintained and was taking on more traffic than it was designed to hold on a steady basis. 46 people died, 9 were injured, and 2 were never found, and it is rumored that Mothman, like I said previously, was sighted numerous times before the bridge collapsed, and that he was connected to the event in some way, which we will go into in a lot more detail on our specific episode on Mothman in our upcoming cryptid series. The first eyewitnesses to see Mothman were 2 married couples, Steve and Mary Mallett, and Roger and Linda Scarberry, on Tuesday, November 15, 1966. It was close to midnight when the couple spotted the creature while driving in Scarberry's car. They described it as being around 6 or 7 feet tall with red eyes and a wingspan of 10 feet. The Mallett couple said it was like a man with wings. However, they pointed out that its head was not an outstanding characteristic. The light gray creature was supposedly a clumsy runner, but they estimated that it flew at about 100 miles an hour, stating that it flew up across the top of their car. They noted the creature's eyes, which glowed red only when their lights were on it, as previously said. And that was from the Point Pleasant Register. The next encounter is from an article we found on mysteriousuniverse.org, which is a particularly chilling encounter by 2 roommates in their apartment in Chicago late at night, which went as follows. I dropped what I was doing and ran to her room to see if she was all right. I walked in to see her cowering in the corner of her room, white as a ghost and shaking. She was babbling hysterically, saying that something was looking in at her from the window. I looked toward the window and didn't see anything but the light coming from the other apartments across the courtyard. I asked what she had seen and tried to tell her that she might have been mistaken. We live on the third floor of a 5-story apartment, and there's nothing outside the window but a 30-foot drop straight down to the courtyard below. My roommate was hysterical and scared out of her wits. I took her to the living room and set her on the couch. I then went to my room to put on a robe or a nightshirt on since I was only in my underwear. My roommate didn't want to be left alone and actually followed me to my room and waited there as I put on a robe and joined her in the living room. After about 20 minutes of calming her down, she finally told me what she had seen in her window. She stated that she was getting dressed, and when she turned to face the mirror on her dresser, she saw a pair of orange eyes staring at her from the window. She turned around to see 2 brightly lit orange eyes staring out at her. These eyes were attached to a creature that was staring back at her through the window. My friend lost it and started screaming hysterically and backed herself into the corner. She said she was filled with this overwhelming feeling of complete and total terror. She felt like the creature was looking at her as though she was prey. She said she felt like a rabbit that was about to be pounced upon by an eagle. I tried to rationalize with her what she had seen, telling her that it could have been an optical illusion or maybe it was the jitters from a week of hard studying. She dismissed everything, saying that she'd seen what she had seen. As I sat there comforting her, my cell phone rang from my room. I got up and ran to my room and snatched it from my dresser top and answered it. It was my boyfriend and one of his buddies, and they were talking about a mile a minute. It sounded like they were out of breath. As I tried to get him to slow down, I walked past my roommate's open door, and to my absolute horror, I saw a pair of glowing red eyes looking through the window right at me. They stared at me for about 3 to 4 seconds before whatever it was abruptly left. Like my friend, I totally lost it and screamed at the top of my lungs and sprinted to the living room. The boyfriend and one of his buddies then apparently rushed over to the apartment to see what was wrong, and that when they had seen something strange described as a large bat with large glowing eyes, which had supposedly flown away from the building to perch atop a basketball hoop at a nearby park before flying off into the night. He states there were about 6 people in the park and all of them had seen it when it had taken off. He states there was no way anyone could have missed it. It was about 6 to 7 feet tall, dark gray to blackish, and the eyes that glow with the intensity of 2 glowing embers. He says that he saw it easily, and when it took off and headed away from the park due to both the lights of the city as well as the nearly full moon that night, they lost sight of the creature after about 5 seconds. That's when he picked up the phone and called me. He says that when they heard me start screaming, they sprinted to block and a half to the apartment. Needless to say, none of us went out that night, and my boyfriend and his buddy stayed with us through the weekend. My roommate refused to go back to her room till it was well after daylight and closed and locked the window and drew the blind shut. She says that it's the only way she felt secure to be in there after dark. I'm still wary about coming home after dark, even though I know I have to do it for both school and work. I hope whatever it was sufficiently scared off by 2 insanely screaming college students, and that I hope that I never see it again. I don't think neither I nor my roommate will ever be the same again after this.
A particular article from the TM Ghost Hunters website draws some correlation with sightings and encounters of Mothman with distinct similarities. It was about an investigation carried out in London which dealt with supernatural phenomena dubbed by the British media the Highgate Vampire. Less than 2 years after the Point Pleasant sighting in America, a disturbing phenomenon began to be reported in the Highgate area of North London. Ordinary people suddenly began to report strange and frightening encounters with a tall, dark, vampire-like creature. The activity centered on Highgate Cemetery, a rambling Victorian cemetery that sits atop Highgate Hill. The British media immediately seized on the vampire idea in the same way their American counterparts had seized on the Batman idea, and Highgate Vampire was so named. Like the Mothman sightings, there was no documented history of any such supernatural creatures fitting its description, being directly associated with the cemetery. What is interesting to note is that nearly 50 years earlier in London, in the spring of 1922, an enormous black bat-like creature with a wingspan of 6 feet was reported flying around a West Drayton church during the night of a full moon. Several terrified witnesses watched the creature dive into the churchyard where it roamed the tombs. When two policemen gave chase through the church cemetery, the creature let out a loud, blood-curdling screech and flew off into the air overhead. It's interesting to ponder if this is a connection between this little-known report and either the Mothman or Highgate Vampire.
The Jersey Devil is a creature native to the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. It is often described as having hooves, a snake's tail, bat wings, and a head that looks something like a horse's head. While there are many stories detailing the origin of the Jersey Devil, sightings have been reported beginning all the way back to the 1700s and continuing on until the past decade. The creature is deeply rooted in folklore and legend in the area. There are several versions or interpretations, if you will, of the Jersey Devil. One is called the Leeds Devil. This version often glows and reportedly can breathe fire or poison water with its breath, which are both more in line with classic dragon characteristics. Local residents trace its origin to a woman named Mother Leeds, the mistress of a British soldier who was suspected of being a witch. When she gave birth to her 13th child, she cursed it. The baby was born as a hairy creature and soon took to terrorizing the populace and eating children.
There's even an account from Joseph Bonaparte, who was the brother of the famous Napoleon Bonaparte, the French conqueror and emperor, while hunting on his land at his estate in Borden, New Jersey in 1820. The account goes as follows. One snowy afternoon, Joseph was hunting alone in the woods near his house when he spotted some strange tracks on the ground. They looked like the tracks of a two-footed donkey. Bonaparte noticed that one foot was slightly larger than the other. The tracks ended abruptly as if the creature had flown away. He stared at the tracks for a long moment, trying to figure out what the strange animal might be. At that moment, Bonaparte, hearing a strange hissing noise, turned. He found himself face to face with a large winged creature with a horse-like head and bird-like legs. Astonished and frightened, he froze and stared at the beast, forgetting that he was carrying a rifle. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then the creature hissed at him, beat its wings, and flew away.
The Jersey Devil of modern sightings are wildly different things. The name has been applied to cryptids that more or less resemble the original Jersey Devil, but is also applied to nearly every New Jersey cryptid imaginable, such as hairy humanoids that resemble Bigfoot, mystery birds, and even eastern cougars. One Jersey Devil sighting described a hairy humanoid with a deer's head and glowing red eyes. A number of well-publicized but not very convincing hoaxes have managed to confuse the matter even more, which sort of scared researchers away from the topic.
The Poplick monster, more commonly referred to as the Kentucky Goat Man, is a legendary creature part man, part goat. He's said to live under the trestle bridge over Poplick Creek in Fisherville, Kentucky, next to Louisville. Several urban legends exist involving this creature and the methods it uses to lure its victims. Some say it's an escaped circus freak seeking revenge on those that used to point and laugh at him, while others claim the Goat Man is an abomination of an old farmer in the area. He would sacrifice his goats in satanic rituals in exchange for good crops. Claims have been made that he uses some kind of hypnosis or mimic cry to draw in trespassers on top of the trestle before they are tragically struck by the train that is still in operation in the area. Other encounters include instances of the Goat Man jumping on top of passing vehicles from tracks above. In any case, the Goat Man is unique in the fact that his legend draws people to dangerous location, and several people have actually been killed in hopes of catching a glimpse of the elusive creature. Some as recently as a few years ago, when a 15-year-old girl climbed atop the train trestle and was struck by an oncoming train. The Norfolk Southern Railway has urged all locals to stay clear of the track and deemed it an arrestable offense if you are caught climbing over the 8-foot-high fence that surrounds the bottom of the trestle. The Poplick monster is shrouded in mystery and keeps locals on their toes. always guessing if he's around the corner when they walk around the trail beneath the Poplick trestle. We're going to have more information on this and more accounts and more stories about the Poplick monster, but it's not as popular as the other ones, so it's a little bit harder to find. And we will be putting more information out about this and more stories about the Poplick monster on future episodes of the YouTube series and the podcast.
These are just a few of the cryptids we picked out for this episode. There are so many more cryptids that we could talk about, but it would take way too long to go into all those on this episode. So like we've mentioned before, we're making a series that's specifically for cryptids. We're going to go into detail on each one, including the ones that we've talked about, the 3 today. So be on the lookout for that content later on down the road. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Check us out on our other platforms. If you've got those, they're going to be in the description below, where you can catch any updates and content that we're going to put out. We really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video and being here with us. It really means a lot. So,
thank you guys for stopping in. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you next time on Strange Realms.
Peace.